So I think the first thing is that we're seeing a lot more patients in our clinic. It's actually increasing our numbers substantially now with patients who are requiring these regular injections to treat geographic atrophy, something that we didn't have anything for before. And so we were seeing these patients maybe once every 6 months to a year. But in the last year and a half or so, it's been, now we're starting to treat them every 6 to 8 weeks a lot of the time. And so that's really actually increasing the number of patients that we're seeing in our clinics. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is just looking specifically at our, primary endpoint of efficacy in terms of reduction of GA growth. And what we can see is that there is this kind of increasing effect with respect to treatment over time. And so when we look at those, lines on the graph where you're comparing a sham treatment group to the treatment groups that we're actually having the trial, the line just keeps on widening. It keeps on spreading out more and more as more time goes on. So right now we have 3-year data with respect to treatment for pegcetacoplan in these trials, and it just keeps on spreading out more and more. The space is bigger and bigger, and that really equates to more retinal tissue preserved. In that, what really struck me was that in those non-subfoveal lesions, when you isolate those specifically at 3 years, you see about a 42% reduction in GA growth rate with monthly treatment. I mean, that's a really an impressive number overall to see with respect to treatment over 3 years. Yeah, so it really does look pretty much the same in terms of rates of certain adverse events at the 36-month data. So we now have 3 years total of data of treatment to look at through clinical trials. And what we can see is that we do still have that slightly higher rate of conversion to wet AMD that is actually higher when you treat monthly as opposed to every other month. You also do see a relatively, what we would say, expected incidence of endophthalmitis, which is about 1 in 3,600. And the other one is that interesting finding that we have with some of these patients who we get ischemic optic neuropathy, which is about 1 in 2,000. And in the GALE data set, there was one additional case of ischemic optic neuropathy in a patient who was receiving monthly dosing. But other than that, we also obviously are focused on inflammation, which everyone is really kind of hyper-focused on right now, specifically because of the incidence of vasculitis that we've seen in the real world. But still, somehow in the clinical trials where we've done many, many injections of pegcetacoplan, we still have not seen a case of vasculitis over the course of this 3-year data set in the trials. But obviously, there have been some cases reported in the real world. We still know from Apellis was reporting that it's been about a 1 in 10,000 incidence over per injection of that vasculitis. And if it seems to be primarily a first injection phenomenon from what we've gathered so far. So if you break it down based upon just the first injection, the incidence is about 1 in 4,000 first injections could develop vasculitis. So just something to be aware of. Make sure you are discussing this when you're having a kind of risk-benefit ratio discussion with your patients. Kind of give them the entire story there so they can help make an informed decision about whether they want to start therapy or not. I think we know now, I think that we do have a path to efficacy through the complement pathway. I think we've seen that at least with these 2 FDA-approved drugs that we now have. The problem is it truly is treatment burden, and I think we need to find durability with the complement pathway. And we're hopefully going to get there eventually, maybe with extended release agents, things like that, possibly gene therapy. But that I think it is a worthy pursuit to continue looking at the complement pathway, but not also hyper-focus on it as well. And also continue to look at other things like possibly we currently have a nanoparticle study where we are trying to modify how macrophages are activated and try to kind of suppress their activity in addition to inhibiting complement to see if that'll help even more. And then there's also, other options, other pathways that we need to consider, other inflammatory pathways we need to consider that play a role in this kind of apoptotic retinal cell death that leads to geographic atrophy. So again, complement is one piece of the puzzle, one part of the story when it comes to geographic atrophy, but it's not the entire story. So it'll be great to see how other pathways are treated medically, but also we've got to do something about durability, at least with what we have so far. Our clinics can't necessarily withstand a massive onslaught of these patients where we have to treat them once every 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the physician, as the numbers continue to grow, which they will grow. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to continue to look at how gene therapy is going to change the landscape of inherited retinal diseases in our field too. I think that's something that we have continued to struggle with, with respect to just having almost nothing to help patients who have inherited retinal dystrophies. And we're just continuing to find new ways to appropriately treat those patients and kind of more innovative ways with gene therapy, possibly with stem cell therapies, things like that. That I think I'm excited to see what new developments are kind of on the horizon, both in animal models and in kind of early human trials when it comes to helping retinal dystrophy patients out, which kind of is the last frontier when it comes to what we've got, where we have almost no treatment. Geographic atrophy was there, and now we actually have something that works. But we still really don't have great treatments for a vast majority of these inherited retinal dystrophies that cause our patients to lose significant amounts of vision.